Hey everybody, it's Rory from A&S Gear, and we're going to look at a brand new gun today. It's the new Shocker XLS. So it's the newest version of the Shocker platform, which has been a tried and true gun, and people have loved the Shocker, but there's some things that I know that GOG had wanted to change or update or refine and make better, and that's exactly what they did with this gun. So let's take a look at it. The case comes in a nice like carbon fiber, I don't want to call it stain resistant or weather resistant, but it's going to help keep its shape, it's going to help keep its look, and it's going to protect your equipment. So it's nice. It's that faux carbon fiber look on the outside there. We get your barrel. Obviously, first thing you're going to see is it's the new XL barrel system. So you get the longer control bore on the inside. It's going to give you that shot you're looking for, that increased accuracy, increased shot performance that you're looking for. Then here's our gun on the inside. We got barrel sleeve. Ooh, back here you've got some O-rings, lube, Allen keys, just the this normal stuff you're gonna get. Then we got our gun. All right, let's put this, and we'll just put it over here, out of the way. That's a good spot right there. All right, so gun. Some of the things right away that you're gonna see just changes in overall aesthetics to the gun. The gun is a bit longer than the other one. So a lot of people complained that the Shocker was just a little bit too small and it didn't fit their hands. And so they listened and they made the gun a little bit longer. There's benefits to that. You don't need to have a super tiny gun. There are benefits to having a longer gun. So here's one. This is a stock Shocker, an RSX. Let's take the barrel off of there. And we'll put them side by side so you can see the differences between the two. So the gun's a little bit longer, right here. So the setup is longer on it. By increasing the overall length of the gun, they can actually increase the volume of air inside the bolt assembly. By increasing the air in the bolt assembly, you can drop the operating pressure of the gun. So a standard Shocker in RSX was somewhere around 170 PSI operating pressure. So these are down at about 145 now. So smoother shot, better shot control, just better accuracy overall, better efficiency. Getting all the bells and whistles, everything going along with it in there. So let's go around the gun and kind of just look at the stuff on the outside. The feed neck really kind of looks the same, but you get the thumb wheel on it now. So the thumb wheel that you saw come standard on the HK RSXs is now standard on the new Shocker. So that's nice. You get the foregrip. So the cover on the foregrip, a lot of people didn't like that this was so small and so thin. And so by adding this extra bulk or beef to the front of it, if you want to call it that, it makes the gun feel a little bit more comfortable in your hands. And I agree with that. I like this ergonomic rubber cover on the front of it. It's comfortable up there. I'm going to kind of skip going back down here to here. The eye covers, the detent system underneath the eye cover is still the same. So that hinged system that you see inside there with that spring is still the same. It works great inside there. But what they have done is they've actually made the screw a little bit beefier on the inside so that it's just going to hold up longer. It's not going to wear as quick or strip out as quick or have as many issues that it could by putting a larger screw. And they've done that in the trigger also. The adjustment screws in the trigger are bigger screws now so that the longevity of the screw is better. You see that they've widened out the trigger guard a little bit. The trigger shape is the same, but what they've done with the trigger, on the old one you had two set screws that came in from the side and pinched the trigger to hold it in place. They've got rid of that. So now what they're using is just one pin through style. Let me see if I can pull it out real quick. Let's see if I have the right size. I didn't think about taking this out, so we're gonna just find one real quick. Nope, that's too big. Just got a mess of keys sitting around over here. Let's try this one. Hey, winner. So by pulling that out, now you can see that's the pivot screw that's going to go on. And then the trigger can just pop right out the bottom. It makes it super simple to change your trigger setup. And that's just going to rock on there on the bearings. When I'm done with that, I can put it back in here. And it's so much easier than it was before to do a trigger swap, to pull the trigger out and just see where the settings are on all the screws that are in there. Makes it so much easier than having to pull these out. Sometimes you had to separate the frame out to get the trigger out. It was just more hassle than it was worth to try to work on those. So again, moving forward, making it easier for the player to set up their gun. Coming down to the bottom, people complained that this stuck out in front of there. I really didn't notice it until I picked it up earlier and then put my hands around it and thought about it. With my hands down here, depending on how I'm shooting, one finger, there's not really enough room for my pinky down there. If I'm shooting two fingers, then it's not that obtrusive, but not all people shoot like that. So there isn't a lot of space without your finger rubbing against that ASA knob at the bottom down there. So with the new setup, depending on how I get it, I don't really even feel it with two fingers or three fingers. They made the knob, the knurling on the knob, or the cuts on the knob, they made them bigger so it's easier to grab a hold of. And they made the ASA smaller. They trimmed it down, which is a great setup right there. So again, keeping kind of everything in line, it's not sticking out, it just makes the gun more comfortable. It makes it easier to shoot, easier to use. I mean, it's all about user interface with these guns, making them easier to use. So let's come up the backside here. Some people had issues on their shocker where these would leak. Water would get inside of them if they're playing in the rain, or it's not always a good idea to get water on your gun in the first place, but if you did, water could get in through the screen on the back and they could ruin your board. So these are now watertight, water resistant to the elements, so it'll keep your board safe, keep it functioning. The button on the back has been redesigned so that it is more reliable, consistent, easier to use. The functionality of it is just better, so there's not as many issues. Some people had issues with their button sticking and just not working. That's been solved right there, so better button reliability through there. And then kind of coming back up around again, we'll talk about the length of the gun. I don't know if I can actually set this on top of here and you guys can see the difference. Obviously I don't want to scratch anything up. So you can see that it is a bit different right there, a bit longer. I'm trying to just line up feet necks because that's kind of where you're going to base it off of. Give yourself a middle point. You can see that does stick out further on the backside right there. All right, so there are a lot of other refinements that they've done to the gun internally. So obviously the bolts have been changed. So we'll pull out this bolt, and this is the upgraded version of the original bolt right here. So it's got the gold back to it. And then we've got the new bolt right here. And as you're going through your gun, if you pick up one of these new shockers, you'll see that some of the parts are red. This is red inside here. There's a new part of the manifold, I'll kind of talk about that in a minute, that is red. There's parts inside the regulator that are red. The bolt tail on the inside, red. All of the red parts are parts that have been redesigned, reconfigured to give you better performance. So actually pull this apart right here so you can see that, and you can see this. So redesigned here, and this is working in conjunction with that overall increase in volume, increase of air, to give you that operating pressure drop and give you that performance of shot to shot, increase in performance from shot to shot. So definitely a good change right there. And I shot this gun the other day and it is noticeably different than the shocker. Sometimes you get some refinements in the gun and you're like, okay, you did some things to the gun, but I don't really see it, I don't feel it. Big difference in just how the gun physically shoots or how it feels when it shoots. So let's put this back in here and we'll move on to the regulator. We'll talk about the differences that are in the reg. So I've already pulled out the cores to both of these. I don't know if you noticed while I'm moving them around, if you look inside of there, both regs don't have their insides in them. So here is, if I can remove this without dropping everything, kind of kept them off to the side and out of the way. That's the inside for the new one, and this is the insides of the old one right there. Now the overall shape, and I don't want to call it design, but overall look of the internals for the regulator are the same. But you can see these ones are red and these are gold. So the gold ones were, well, this was brass, I believe. They've changed that, so they've lightened this up. They have incorporated the spring into the piston. So when you go to separate this and take it apart, you're not going to lose the spring. It's not going to fall out on you and get lost or something that you have to deal with. Now you can pull it out. The spring can come out. It's held in place by an O-ring that is recessed onto the inside of this piston, so it keeps the spring from coming out. So if you ever needed to change it for some reason, you can. You don't have to get a whole new piston assembly. But they've lightened this up. They've lightened this up and redesigned it to accommodate the drop in pressure. If you just drop pressure overall inside the entire gun, but you don't help with airflow and make things move quicker, faster to accommodate for the lack of pressure, you're not going to help yourself out any. So by lightening up the parts, making the airflow better, higher airflow through the system, you can use the benefits of the lower pressure with the higher flow and get yourself the performance that you're looking for. So they did that with this new regulator. You've got a higher flow with lighter weight parts, capitalizing on the lower pressure and the higher volume, making stuff work. So a good setup all around. And again, I like when you've got less things to worry about when you pull a system apart, so that you're not just dropping parts all over the place. Let's go ahead and put this back together. You can see how this goes in. It's going to go down in there. I think that's the right one. Yeah, that's the right one. Put that down in there. Piston assembly in there. Now this part, certain guns, this part kind of wants to move around. You can see in this one that it likes to stick down inside of there. You just got to be careful with your gun. Make sure that you don't lose your parts or they don't pop out of place when you're trying to put them back together. There it is. All right. I want to weigh these two guns up just by themselves here, so I want to make sure all their parts are inside of them so that we can see if there's a difference in weight in either the positive or the negative, or up or down. I don't know what you want to call it. I guess not positive or negative, just more or less, increase or decrease. Let's get this all the way in here. There we go. So that one's back together. Let's drop this bad boy down in there. Twisty, twisty. That goes in there. That goes in there. All right, so there's a couple things we want to talk about with the solenoid itself. So they redesigned the manifold. They've double O-ring part of it, so it's just more reliable. They have changed, and if you look inside of there, the manifold will be red. So you'll know that it's been a changed part or redesigned part. There was a bolt speed adjustment, which is up through there on this one. And then it's still there, just underneath the trigger guard right there. The original adjustment for the bolt speed screw had a tendency to adjust itself sometimes, or could be adjusted so far to the point where the bolt wouldn't work in certain conditions. If it was too cold, the bolt wouldn't work, or if there was not enough grease on it, it wouldn't work. They've made it so that you can't do that anymore. You can't over adjust it to the point where it won't work anymore. They've given you limits, and the screw is set to a limit now. It only moves so far, so that you can't take it out of adjustment. You can adjust it, but you can't make it so bad to the point where it just won't work in certain conditions. But you still have that adjustment. So again, the user interface, the user experience is what they're trying to make better with the gun, so that you can't do things to the point where the gun just doesn't work. Obviously the board has new programming in it, and it's gonna make the board function better battery life. But overall, they're trying to make it so that you can't screw your gun up. Even though there's still ways to do it, they're trying to help you out with that. So let's go ahead and throw this on the scale real quick. All right, so let's throw, what was that, 166? And this one, 169. So barely any difference in weight there. You're not going to feel that at all. Let's do it with barrels. We might see that add a little bit of weight because you do have a longer aluminum insert inside there. So with barrel, what, a 111.4? And then with this one, 112. So not much again. Was that 0.6 of an ounce on there? The difference that you get though in the shot with this gun is noticeable. It was noticeable from the very first shot when I shot it the other day. So the refinements that they've done really help the gun. The interface with the gun, just all the parts, making it easier to use without making it complicated. It all makes sense with this gun. So I definitely recommend checking one of these guns out, getting one, shooting one, and just feeling the difference, just how it feels in your hands, the setup, the distance is the way it should be. It's nice and long. For me, that's what I like. You know, I've always liked the Lux. I like the length of that gun. And so for this, having it spread out a little bit more, it really feels good in your hands. So it gets a thumbs up from me. Definite recommendation. Check it out. The new XLS shocker from Shocker Paintball. It's available through the website. I don't know if it's available. By the time this video goes up, they might not be available. They might be on pre-order. I'm not sure. But just check the website for the colors that are available for pre-order or purchase and get yours through ansgear.com.